the Nikon 200 f2, my favorite lens. Let's discuss. Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the 200 f2, which is my favorite lens. It's probably not the one I use the most, but if I can and I have the room, I'm going to grab it, especially for any portrait work. Yes, it's a little bit heavy. It's right about 6.5 pounds itself. I've used this lens for portraits, weddings. I've used it to take landscape photos, just everyday shooting, taking shots of the kids outside playing. I've used it at my son's basketball game. I've used it at my daughter's ballet recitals. I've taken long exposures with it, and I try to shoot wildlife with it, and I take it to the zoo. This is one of Nikon's top-end, high-end, super premier, expensive lenses. It comes in at almost $6,000, but it is worth it. The quality that you get out of this lens is, like anything else, higher end. The more you pay, generally the better quality that you get. It is very sharp. It is very fast to autofocus. It has a really nice VR system built in, especially when you use it with the Z cameras. And it does take a teleconverter pretty well. I've used it with the 2.0 that I borrowed from a friend, and I used it with my 1.4 that I actually own. Like I said, this is one of Nikon's expensive lenses, coming in at just under $6,000, and it's heavy. It's like 6.5 pounds by itself. Add on the camera, an adapter, a grip, a teleconverter, you're looking at 9 to 10 pounds. Another small downside to it, it is hard to pack away. Pretty much it's got its own case. That's kind of the way you take it. It doesn't really fit in many backpacks. It doesn't fit in any hard cases unless you have like a larger size Pelican. The other thing that it actually lacks is a front cap. There's a little bag that goes over the front of it. It's not great as far as anything hitting the front element. You kind of have to buy one of these lens cap covers, I guess you could call it. It's got some little rubber things that kind of keep it on. It just kind of twists in a little bit in the front, and at least it protects it from any impact. So if anything hits this, I would trust this a little bit more than the padded little sock that goes over it. This is expensive. This is 70, 75 bucks. But with a lens at this cost, it's well worth it. You don't want to skimp on protecting the front glass whatsoever. According to Lightroom, I've taken 4,894 images with this that I've uploaded to Lightroom. So I guess I do take a decent amount of photos with it. I've had it about 2 years. I'm a real fan of subject isolation, fan of compression. I love the way the image looks when you can pull the background forward. You get a nice smooth, nice creamy out of focus area with it. It does render an image very, very well. It is very, very sharp. You do get a lot of detail with this lens. I've used it on my D850, my Z6, the Z7, and the Z6 II. It works essentially the same on all 4 of those cameras. The vibration control is really, really good on the lens, and combined with the Z cameras, it's phenomenal. It works great. Pretty much you want to use this lens when you have ample room. You need to mostly be outside. Unless you're in a big indoor arena, kind of like a big gymnasium, like a basketball event. But even then, when somebody's coming closer to you, you kind of you're at too long of a focal length. So like the versatility there, maybe say a 70-200 would be more optimal for there. But if you have the space and you have it and you can use it, and you like the subject isolation and kind of just making everything behind it disappear to take the every distraction possible away, and focus on your subject and what the image is actually about, this is kind of what you grab for. Especially if you're doing any portrait work outside, maybe taking a wedding party, as I did. Took one to a park, and there was a lot of people out there. Very surprising how many people were actually there on that night. But using this lens, I used it for the entire bridal party shoot. The group shots, the bride and groom, all the bridal party themselves individually with the bride and groom separately. You can take all the distraction away, take away all the people in the background, and just kind of make it look really nice, make it all about them, because that's what that one was all about. The biggest thing that this lens compares to is probably my 105 1.4, the Nikon lens, and I do have the 70-200 FL, which I'm actually filming with right now. They are pretty close to this. But like anything else, as soon as you get above the superb quality and the 90-95%, get that last 5 to 10% of any image quality or any background blur or whatever you're after, subject isolation, anything else, this one is going to be the one that you're going to pull. It's going to pull ahead. It does compare to them very close. It is a lot more expensive. It's a lot more heavy, and it's not as versatile as those two. The 105, you can at least shoot it indoors. It's not so long to where you're constantly backing up. The 70 to 200, it is the more versatile lens, especially, you get the 200, you get a 2.8, which is a little bit stopped down. But it's still, it's a great lens. When you first get this lens, the biggest thing that you want to do is replace this foot. This is a really right stuff foot. The one that it comes with is all of about, a third of the size, maybe a half at most. But it's got no Arca Swiss on it. You have to, screw on your little plate or whatever you're going to use on there. Even though these, can range anywhere between 40, 50, 60, 70 bucks. This is definitely worth it. It's going to give you something better to hold on to. The other one, you can barely even get one finger on there. Plus, it's going to give you your mount, so you can put it on a tripod, monopod, whichever, if you're not going to hand hold this at all. The other thing, like I said, is the cap. Kind of just goes on here. Kind of just give it a little twist, kind of locks some rubber rings in place, and now it's protected. The front element is not going to get damaged. The other thing is the sock, and it just kind of covers the front. Something would impact that front in your bag or in the car. If it's not in there, for some reason you don't have the hood on it, which you always should. This is going to protect it. I mean, 70 bucks to cover your $6,000 investment in your lens is just kind of well worth it. Was this lens worth the extreme cost? That's up to it's up to you. If you have the money, which I was fortunate enough to actually buy this. I actually was hesitant on it, and my wife suggested just order it. She said, stop looking at it, just get the lens. I am really happy with it. It is that extra push over the edge. It is that extra fine quality. Heavy, yes. Quality, yes. Focusing, very, very quick. The downside, if you cannot handhold, 7, 8, 9 pounds, try using a monopod, a tripod. I've used it on all of them. It works great. I try to take this lens everywhere. If I'm going to a wedding, portraits, up north, wildlife, even landscapes, it goes in the car. Whether or not it comes out, it's another story. I try to use it as much as possible. If I have a use for it, it's getting put on the camera. Just because the added quality, the color that comes out of this is nothing like any other lens that I've got. Barring all the cons from this one, I'd say it's worth it for me. For you, just depends. If you're looking for that highest quality, that extra little push, that extra sharpness, that extra depth of field, a little bit low light capability over a 2.8, this is the one to get. I don't see myself ever getting rid of this lens. As long as I'm shooting Nikon, it stays. This is one that I always pack. Let's go show you some images. Let's hop into Lightroom. All right, here we are at the desk, and we're going to jump into Lightroom here. Through maybe, I don't know, 96 images of the 200 in here, just kind of a variety, show different kinds of shoots, different things, the animals, the landscapes, kind of everything that I've shot, in the whole variety. So let's just get right into it here. This was a boudoir shoot that turned into more of like a Renaissance shoot. This was actually in a backyard in the wintertime. This was back in, I believe, March of 19. Or March 9th of 19. This was shot with a flash at 2.0. It has great sharpness on the eyes, on the face, and you still get a lot of detail in the fur. It starts to fade off. It gives it a real nice soft feel, but yet everything that's in focus is razor sharp. Something a little close, you can see how as you get closer to your subject, you get a nice smooth, you can still tell there's trees or whatever back there, but the focus is entirely on her. And the sharpness of this is just unbelievable. I wanted this to be as close as I could get with this lens. I could fill the frame almost all the way with her cloak up over with her hood on. And given that she had some red or orange or red-orange hair at the time, give it a nice contrast to kind of brook it up real nice. Nice detail on the hood of the cloak, on the fur, even though it's a little soft because the focus is on her eyes. I think it gives it a little bit better overall feel, and nothing in the background. You almost don't even look at this, and everything is focused on her itself. It's something we usually take it to the zoo. I wanted to throw this one in here just to show the amount of detail in the skin of the rhino when you zoom in. Everything from here all the way across until you start getting maybe midway back, because he, she, whatever is kind of facing towards the rear. But the detail you get in like a skin texture with this, and the contrast between the wrinkles, the cracks, and like even in the horns, you can see in here. This gives this is why I love it. This was a shoot that I did for my cousin. That's my cousin here on the left. They got engaged, and I needed some couple shots, so they wanted them done. I needed photos, throw them in my portfolio, so we took them out to the park and did these. Wanted to show the amount of depth of field even when you're backed up. You can show an entire environment here with them right in the center of these two big trees, and still almost has that 3D pop to the image. You've got two massive trees, two people, and a path, and you have woods behind. You can still tell it's woods, but the focus is still kind of in the center. You don't take your eye off it to look around. Your focus is straight down the middle. Just them sitting, just the sharpness you can see no matter what. And this is at f2, and they're both sharp because they're both on the same plane. Okay, this is one thing I wanted to show with more than one person. At f2, even with the shallow depth of field, you can get, still, if you have two people, one's in front, you can see even with this lens, this hand will be a little bit off, this one's, it's right on. But you get them people on the same plane, you can get the focus in sharp on both people, as long as you're even with them and they stay even. If one's too far forward or too far back, you're going to get one sharp and one soft. So if you're taking pictures of two people, make sure that their heads are even together. This is my daughter at her ballet recital. There was a lot going on. We were trying to get some images before she went in for her dance. This was actually outside in a corner where nobody was standing, in a brick wall. There was like a little, I guess you could call it, a grassy spot here, and there was a door here, and there was a bunch of people inside the door where there's the door was a window. So to kind of remove all that distraction and the, kind of some of the crap on the ground, use this lens at f2, get relatively close to get a 3/4 shot, and with her wearing yellow and the orange behind me, I felt it gave a nice contrast for her. Movement, you can go like sports or wildlife, animals. This was at the zoo, of course, but it gives you a lot of practice. It's a moving subject. You can tell he nailed his monkey, kind of jumping off. But with the 2500th of a second, they move around pretty quick. You ever try to take some pictures of these little Japanese macaques or snow monkeys at the zoo? They fly around. They run really, really quick. So high shutter speed, the f2. I mean, it looks like it's just kind of popped out. It's nice and crisp. These are my grandparents. I shot in the backyard. They came up for, I can't remember what this was for, and they asked me if they'd get some images taken while they were here. Absolutely, because they live in Florida. So what we did is we just went in the backyard. They didn't feel like going to a park or anything, so instead of trying to get anything wider, we wanted to narrow it down and not get much of the backyard. There's a house behind me, a house to the left, there's a garage to the right side. So the fence in the back with a little bit of, these are actually grapevines in the rear. So we took images in the back. Got a couple of nice shots for them. And he was just wearing a pair of jean shorts. So you'd never know it by this. But, especially older people, you don't want to go in and fix anything in them. Well, this is how they look. This is how they are. I mean, look at the detail in their faces. And this is what you want. This is something that they love this picture, and so do I. Just shows their love for each other. They've been together their whole lives, and they're in their 80s. And this one's great. I love this shot. I like this one just because you get a sense of the environment. But man, he looks like, if you look at it, move your head a little bit, it almost looks like it's like a hologram style image. It's just something that this lens does that I haven't found in any of the lens that I have that does this, which makes some of the images really feel like you're there and really lifelike. I mean, they have such small eyes, and yet it's so detailed. This is a shot I took at ClickCon of a guy I kind of became, really good friends with that I met through the internet. His name is Spiros Henyatis. You can find him, on YouTube, and he does a lot of good teachings. Really, really cool, down to earth, really good guy. During one of his instructor classes, he was standing out in the street, and I ran down the block, and I had to run a decent amount because he's a pretty tall guy, and took the shot of him. I like it, and I sent it to him, and just kind of all about him, standing on the street. You'd never know where we were, but I grabbed it for him, and look at the detail we have. Just really, really nice. As you can see, it was a pretty hot day. This was shot in this park in the back with natural light. The leaves are not photoshopped in. These were thrown by my daughter while he was sitting there, and these were thrown by my son when she was sitting there. But the even at 400th of a second, you get a nice crisp shot, as long as you can hold this thing still. But the vibration control, they were sitting real still, so all the movement's going to be on me. Here's a long exposure I took with this lens. I stopped it down to f4 just to get more of the bridge in shot. You can't see the water because obviously it's really dark, but this is a 30-second exposure of the Mackinac Bridge between Lower Michigan and the UP. It just proves that you can do anything with this lens, as long as you got the room. I just like it because at the 200 focal length, the bridge looks so massive. I mean, look at the 30 seconds on this at f4, stop down from f2. The sharpness of this and how the color looks. Just kind of the depth that it gives that bridge using this lens over something wider. Shot with it with the 2x teleconverter almost makes it like a macro-esque shot. This is just a frog at a local park in a little pond, but it's almost like it's a macro lens. But still, the detail, even with the 2x teleconverter. So it's a 200 f2 with the converter on, makes it a 400 f4. But nice and clear. Still focused just fine. It slows down a little bit with the 2.0, not much at all with the 1.4. At 1.4, you don't even notice it. And here's a landscape from up north with it. We drove around trying to find the perfect spot, looking for the sun to set behind this lighthouse. And of course, we're in the perfect spot for it and got met with clouds. As soon as the sun kind of came down, I wanted to get it right behind the glass portion of this lighthouse. As soon as it made it there, the clouds came in and covered it up. But we got some decent shots with it before it went down there. But this is at f8. Like I said, I rarely stop it down, but for like a landscape shot, I wanted, the silhouette of the lighthouse and the boardwalk going down, kind of leading you in, and the sun kind of glowing the entire sky. As you can see, it came down, and then as soon as it went to go behind, of course the clouds come in. These are from this past year. You can see a little bit progression in quality of images here. This was taken at a different park. Every year we do a different park for the kids' fall images. But again, 200 f2 at 2.0. This was shot with a flash from the camera left side, coming straight across. And still crisp, nice and sharp every time. The only time it misses is when I screw up. Just the feel, you can see what it does to the background, whether you're close, far away. You kind of see what you get with this lens. Nothing else kind of really comes close. If you were, so 105 in the 70-200, they do come close, but they just don't have what this gives. Something a little bit farther away, you can see you get a little bit more depth of field as you step back a little bit. And my son the same way. The detail. And then here's another one, like I was saying with both of them. We set them up and he's kind of sitting a little bit back from her. like his shoulders like in the middle of her belly, just so his head's even with hers. That way at F2 still, they are both sharp. They're not blurry at all. Obviously you gain a little bit of depth of field and that's not as critical as you back up, but when you're in close, they've got to be the same distance. And this is one of my favorite shots of them. This is a hill and a freeway up here, and there's a walking path here. So you'd never know it was there. You'd think this was out in some nice field with a random tree, but I'd lay it on the ground and put the lens right in the grass. That way we eliminate the bridge up on top, eliminate the sidewalk that you can see for the cement, and then, you know, place them as much as I could fill it. So kind of neat when you get, you know, this diagonal. He's shorter than she is, and then it goes into the tree. I just wanted to put this one in here to show the difference. When they're even, both of their eyes are sharp. Getting them to sit still perfectly the same distance was a chore. But, you know, my wife was on the side making sure that they were lined right up. That way, neither one of them is blurry. Both eyes, crisp, detail. Use the flash, you get a nice little light in their eye. And this is my wife. This was out in the front yard. These are trees that are about 4 houses away, 3 houses away. There's a car in the street. There's a driveway next to us. There's a car down here. But you can't tell exactly what those things are because of this lens. You couldn't get this. I tried it with the 105, 1.4, and you could see all this stuff. But with the 200, it's gone. You can't even tell where you're at. This is in a front yard of a regular subdivision with the trees just before the leaves fell off. She wanted to do some form of a colorful fall autumn shoot, and this is what we ended up doing out in the front yard with a flash just enough to light her up and use the color in the background from the sun that was going down. But here's the detail. I mean, you can get detail from other lenses, but there's just something special about this one. We did like a whole set in the front yard. This is on the Z7, so I shot it. You know, a lot of these were 850 and Z7. But you know, always sharp, always. And all the colors it just pulls in them trees from down the street. And you got one that's, you know, 2 regular houses, you know, or in a subdivision with a regular, you know, house plot. And trees are being pulled in from, you know, several houses away to look like they're right there. But it gave us the color we were looking for. We didn't even have to go anywhere. We stepped outside the front porch. And this was shot without the flash, with just the light coming through as the sun was setting. So it kind of gave a little yellow, orangish glow to kind of match the tree. Give it a little bit different feel. Figured we'd give it a shot. Here's the wedding that we did in November. This is the one that I used the 200 f2 for everything on the outside. Once we were done with the inside ceremony, of course there was no reception because of, you know, lockdown and COVID, but we were end up, you know, able to go to a park and we did all the images with the 200 f2. I didn't even get out another lens. I got out a 70-200 and put it right back. We had the space. There was probably a couple thousand people at this park. But we got on the bridge. They wanted pictures with the bridge. Being that rust color they liked, the wood of the, I guess you could call it the handrail or guardrail or whatever you want to say. There was people walking. They were everywhere on this bridge, up and over both sides. But using this lens, I was able to shoot in between people walking by, and you'd never tell. They were a big fan of the fall kind of look. We were hoping it was going to be snowing a little bit of flurries, but no luck. But here's all of them in a line, and I was standing quite a ways back, so I had my wife, as long as you have an assistant, you can come have them go up, tell them where to stand, and then she just kind of gets out of the way right in here, gets out of the image. I mean, there is a bunch of people back there. You can kind of see them. They were kind of moving away for us, but it was busy. I've never seen this park this busy ever. But with this lens, we were able to eliminate almost all of the distractions behind them. I mean, you can't force people to get out of your way, but you can definitely use the lens to your advantage here. All of them are exactly in a line, so they're all nice and sharp. And got them to have a little bit of fun. Of course, we put the girls up there. and there's people behind them, but you can't see them. Then we moved off the bridge over to just as it was starting to dim down a little bit and get a little dark. Moved off into the grass and had the woods behind. We just liked the color of the way the sun was hitting it, and then we used the flash to light them a little bit because this was pretty dim. But we wanted, she liked the color, and so did I. I like the fall look, the fall colors, the browns, the oranges, the yellows. Looks good, especially with her white dress and what the bridesmaids were wearing. It kind of made them pop off the back pretty well. But again, keeping multiple people. This is at 2.2. I stepped it down just a third of a stop, just to make sure that, you know, there was any variance, because they were moving, they were having a good time, and they were getting ready to go. And same thing with the guys. That's most of the images. Those are the key things with this is hold steady. That F2 makes it's thin. The depth of field is so small and your focus area is so tiny, and the closer you get to whatever you're taking an image of is going to shrink that depth of field. I love it. Just for examples here, you can see most of the shots I take with it are nice and crisp, nice and in focus. It's never the lens's fault. It never screws up. Any missed shots are on me, not the camera, not the lens. This is going to stay with me for a while. So here's all your examples, everything you need to know about this lens. Expensive, heavy, but worth it. You're going to get some awesome images no matter what camera you put it on. So if you got the money and you got the know-how, rent it, borrow it, make sure you want it, buy it. It's fun. Till next time, let me know what you guys want to see next, and we'll do some more. Take it easy.